Welcome to Legacy Cast, where we talk about your story, your way, and what are you doing to make sure that people know about you many generations from now. Welcome to the program today, Legacy Cast listeners. This is your host, James Snow, coming to you from the Legacy Cast bunker here in Texas. Hopefully not going to be cooking too much today as we're having a little bit of rainy weather. But I have a wonderful guest with me today, Jessica Olbin, I think is how her last name is pronounced. She'll correct me here in a moment, I'm sure, if I got it wrong. But Jessica comes to me from Indiana, I believe she had told me just before we came on. So I'm certainly enjoying cooler weather and going to spend some time just digging into what she's doing in her life, because here with Legacy Cast, we talk to people about what their vision of legacy is. Whether that be sometimes it is a financial vision, but more so it's people telling their story their way, telling a story that's heard for generations from now, so that they know that you lived and what you were passionate about, what you did to make positive marks on the world, and hopefully also influence other people in a positive way so that they become better people. So Jessica, without further ado, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So Jessica, like I was mentioning on the intro there, legacy tends to have a lot of different meanings for people. And I like to start the program with kind of just approaching that subject first. Is when you hear the word legacy and you kind of think about that, what image do you get from that?
The mark you leave on the world, the mark you leave with the people around you, and in a bigger sense, the world.
Yeah, and I like how you had put that, because it does make a mark. I oftentimes use the analogy of the pebble in the pond that creates ripples, but it really is much like that, because when we do things in life, we should be obviously deliberate, because everything that we do is going to have an effect. Whether we realize it or whether we see that effect, it is going to have one. And so we have to be mindful of that. And that's why I mentioned that you have to be deliberate in what your choices are, because everything that we do is seen by somebody else, it's heard by someone else, and it's going to have an effect either for the positive or negative. And so, we must make that choice, I think, to make those, correct choices for ourselves, so that we are, creating that later effect the way that we want.
I can't agree more. And I have 2 children, so I feel like that has definitely solidified, that everything you do is seen and heard and emulated. So the importance of how what I say, what I do is, hits a lot harder for me because I have kids looking at me.
Yeah, and obviously, children are a form of our legacy. Is that's in the very literal sense that it's a piece of ourselves, lasting for the next generation. And I'm a person of faith, and so when I in my finance practice, that actually was something that was part of the mantra that I built my practice around, was a particular verse that said that we should build a legacy for our children and our children's children. And so that's something that really at the core drives not only what I do in my professional world, but also, even having the podcast, is wanting other people to hear, what people in their community are doing, to create that lasting mark. So, with thinking about legacy, and you mentioned you have a couple children, is it something that you personally spend time and I guess active energy thinking about? What are you doing today that's going to last, later on?
Absolutely. Well, of course, they're my why, and I say that they are and will always be my greatest accomplishments. So no matter, what I accomplish in my business or personal life, they are my greatest. I love to foster their creativity and just help them embrace their authenticity. So I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. So the 6-year-old, is a little bit older, and she actually has her own YouTube channel. And she loves to be creative and perform and put herself out there. So fostering what makes them happy is really important to me. And we try to, we do we actually made little bracelets today. We do something at least every day to foster their creativity and just let them experience different things that they may find a passion for.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned your older daughter has her own YouTube channel, because our next generation is going to be so digitized that if it's great that you're involving that. Yeah, I guess obviously do you not have any kind of a concern in that as far as the exposure to technology?
Actually, that's a really great question. So she is going into first grade this year. She was in kindergarten last year. And actually at her school, every single student receives an iPad at the beginning of the year, and it's theirs to keep the whole year, and they're responsible for it and all of that. So part of her school, and actually something that her and I have talked about, is safety online, what things are important to share online and what's not okay to share online. And it's actually something that they went through in kindergarten even and learned about, because of how digital and online our society is. So no, I'm not concerned, because I believe she knows boundaries and has expectations set and what's okay to share and what's not okay to share. But I definitely appreciate that even school talks to kids about why we do what we do and why we don't do certain things. But no, I think I love to foster her creativity. I love it that she's confident and happy doing the things that she does. So no, I'm not concerned. I'm pleased with how she has boundaries for herself in regards to her channel.
No, and I love your answer. And in fact, I love the fact that you're mentioning boundaries, because that's something that even we as adults, so often we don't create boundaries. And that's one of the most empowering things that we can do for ourselves is create that boundary of, this is my space, this is my realm, and it's not okay to cross that line. And so many people don't do that, and especially our direct family, our immediate family, sometimes are the ones that we need to create the most boundaries with, because the parents want to encroach oftentimes and get past where that boundary line is. And I guess my mother is probably listening and wringing her hands at the moment, because that's how parents are. But it's something that we definitely do need for healthy relationships, is to know where those boundaries are, and then know that other people are aware of those boundaries and respect them. So I love that you have established that at even such a young age as 6 years old, that's already begun.
Well, it's hard even for as adults to have that boundary conversation. Sometimes if sometimes it's you don't know how to say things and still be respectful and mindful of the people. So I felt like, starting young, it's important that we, she feels comfortable communicating, her boundaries to people, or even, within herself. Because later in life, you have to have boundaries, or you end up either being a doormat or being unhappy, or, not living your best life. So.
Yeah, and knowing, it's going to instill so much confidence for her that she does know where that boundary is, and it's going to be so comfortable in it. So I can see that's going to create a lot of strength, strength of character down the road. So yeah, kudos to you for that one.
Thank you. Thanks.
As far as when you think about your legacy, how do you correlate that into your business as far as that active conversation in how you structure your business?
Well, ultimately we want to be, I want to be helpful. I want to be seen as someone who, is a problem solver. And some things that are important to me, especially like with my kids, and the reason that I do what I do is to show them, you can do what you do and be passionate about it and love your life every day, and not feel like you're working. But I actually am in the process of setting up some JA talks, some junior achievement talks, and going into some classrooms and talking to kids about, entrepreneurship and things like that. So on like a global or outwardly, other than my personal family scale, I think it's important. Our kids are our future, and to make sure that they understand that they don't have to fit into what society tells them to do with their life. They can do what they want and be happy and successful. Some financial and some time freedom, so I'm able to do things like that and spend more time working on global change.
And I again, kudos for going into like the environment of going into schools and passing that on, because so often that's not done, and that really needs to be done. And so many things such as the legacy concept, or even in my world the finance concept, those are things that aren't taught well enough at school. And so having other people that are in the professional world to come in and have that conversation is so huge. I mean, it's planting seeds in the most fertile soil, and it's a great thing to be doing. So I love that you mentioned that that's part of your giving back is doing those junior achievement programs.
And also too, being authentic. I mean, I feel like a lot of the times it's difficult, especially if you work a 9 to 5 or you're not in business for yourself. It's hard for you to let your authenticity show. And I mean, even growing up and going to school, I really struggled with finding who I was and being authentic. So I feel like it's important for me to put that out into the world. I mean, I have tattoos, I have some piercings, and I feel like it's okay for me to make those choices and be happy with them, and it's okay for others to see that. So that's important to me as well, is making sure that I'm sharing my love of authenticity and hoping people can find the courage sometimes if they're not confident to embrace it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're mentioning your authenticity that comes to play very much in your business, from what I understand, as far as I guess the way that your business is perceived and how people hear about you, and what they hear about you, that your authenticity does shine through very much into your business, and the mantra that your business is built on.
Absolutely. It was actually it was a very difficult transition for me to embrace my authenticity in my business, because I grew up in a corporate America culture. So I felt like my voice was a little stifled and uber professional. So now, and even in my writing, I feel like sometimes my professional, stifled voice still shows. But I mean, this is how, I come like this: hats, tattoos, cursing and all. It doesn't make me less of a success because I have these things or do these things. I can actually do the shit that I say that I can do, which helps the process. But I found that embracing me and putting that out there and just, using my real voice attracts the right people, the vibe of people that I want to work with and that I want to surround myself with. And I don't get stuck with asshole clients or asshole people in my network, because I do put myself out there, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's good that you put that key statement out there, because when we're working with people, I always remind myself, there's only so many hours in the day, and we can help only so many people, during the day and during the week, and so that time is very valuable, and so it should be spent with the correct kind of person. If you're working with the wrong person, at some point that's going to crumble and it's going to fall apart, and there's just going to be a lot of angst that comes from that relationship that really probably should not have been built, because you're working with the wrong person. And when you're authentic with yourself and very transparent in what you're looking for, as you mentioned, the right kind of person is going to show up. The right kind of person is going to come onto your doorstep, and they're going to knock on the door because they want to do business. And those are going to be good clients, and they're going to be returning clients, because you're working with the right person. And that really is what we should be doing, is seeking out the correct people and helping those, because again, there's only so many hours in the day, and so there's plenty to go around. A lot of people don't think about that, but there's so much to go around that we don't have to be desperate and just grab low-hanging fruit. We can grab the ones that are the correct person.
I agree with that. And even even just in your network or your tribe, as far as, being who you are, you attract the right people. Relationships aren't hard work. They're not, difficult, and they can come easy, and you can have the support and love and tough love that you need, from people that, know and like and respect you. And you're right. Actually, I just had a conversation, I think last week, with someone who is essentially a direct competitor of me. She does the exact same thing that I do. She does focus on more like high level performance, but I am a huge believer in embracing community over competition.
Right.
Her and I were able to have an awesome communication and talk, because we share the geeky love of spreadsheets and all of the things that come with our job. But the world is so big. There's so many customers out there. There's so many fish in the sea. Why, you can't target everybody, get the people that, you like. And even as far as your network goes, that too. I mean, relationships shouldn't have to be a lot of work.
That's true. And when you're mentioning, the fish in the sea, it reminds me of an analogy that, if you're fishing in the ocean, there's so much space in between each fish. So your success rate is not going to be that great. But when you're fishing in a pond, the space between each one is going to be much closer, and your success rate is going to be higher because you're fishing in a smaller pond in a more isolated area for a more specific target. And so really that's how our businesses should be, is instead of doing deep sea fishing, let's do a little bit of backyard pond fishing and get the ones that really are in our world and not somebody else's world.
That's a really great analogy. The pond is your niche. Instead of, being so broad and saying, I help everybody do this thing because of this. And no, if you target, if you have a specific ideal customer that you can serve the best, then, fish for those people, leave the other ones to someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I've become known for, a financial planner that works with veteran entrepreneurs. So, I being prior military, I had my experience in the Army. And so working with people who were also in the military, we don't have to go through as much of the bond and rapport because we kind of had that camaraderie. And so, my niche is very isolated, and it's a very small niche because I guess maybe 5% or less. I think the number I heard last was about 3% of business owners are veterans. So I'm really fishing in a pond of 3% of the community. But at the same time, it's very easy for me because I work with that very specific group, and they know that I work with that group, and so the word gets around. Now, when you're thinking about your business and its future, let's look at it maybe from the CEO standpoint for a moment. Are there a few things that maybe you kind of keeps you up at night, as the saying goes? Things about your business that concern you that you think about a lot?
Yes and no. So I mostly do hands-on stuff. It's me coming into a business and strategizing or auditing the business, and then either giving them a do-it-yourself strategy or me doing it for them. So most recently, of course, I'm working towards, time freedom, and especially to spend time with my kids and do other things. So I now literally just like Thursday of last week have started strategizing for some hands-off packages that I can sell in my business. But really that's what's been on my mind most of the time, is just how do I accomplish my goal of the time freedom that I want? Because obviously I can only help, 3 or 4 clients a month with their chaos and stress. So how can I serve more people but be more hands-off and have more time for myself is what's on my mind lately.
Yeah, and you're mentioning something that a lot of people that I speak with, they struggle with also. So I'll kind of ask you to dig in on that a little bit, where you were talking about the hands-on and hands-off approaches in the business, as far as the do-it-yourself versus the you do it for them part of it. So how do you juggle that? Do you emphasize the part of I can do this for you because it frees your time, or do you do the reverse to where it's like, here's what you need to know in order for you to do that. Keep your costs a little bit lower because you're doing it, and then you can move on to the next client. How do you juggle that?
Well, normally, so I usually have an initial phone call with them if I'm not familiar with them, so that I can judge, like, okay, first of all, I'm not going to sell someone something that they don't need. So someone that is riddled with chaos and stress, that is like a solopreneur or doesn't have a team of people,
Right.
asking them to do it themselves is it's kind of defeating the purpose of me helping them relieve their stress, because I'm like, okay, here's 27 things that you could do to fix your stuff. But then they're like, oh no, like, how can I continue to do? So I sell both. I mean, in regards to, to try to keep my costs low, I will suggest that if they can't afford a done for you strategy, I will suggest that they spend a little bit of time or money. Let me hire someone for them that can implement things for them. So they're not, getting the whole giant package of me doing it for them, but I can find a OBM, an online business manager, or a VA to implement things to keep them hands off. But ultimately that's my goal, to relieve stress, to systematize and streamline and automate a lot of things that people are spending. I had a client that was literally on the phone all day and all night on sales calls. And we eliminated like half of his time spent on the phone by just automating a discovery questionnaire. So now, instead of spending 2 hours on the phone with someone, they fill out a questionnaire, and then he can cut that time down and kind of cut to the chase. So it really just varies per person. But I try to do what's best for the client. Of course, I like to get paid for what I do. But ultimately having someone's success and mindset is really important to me, to make sure that their mindset stays right. Because if your mind's not right, you're not going to grow or be successful.
That's true. And that's not just something in your world. That's across the industries. That mindset does have so much to play in, and the head trash that comes along with people's mindsets and the things that they're telling themselves that 90% of the time is not true, and it's just a bunch of junk in between the ears. That getting the mindset right is so key.
It's just lies. I actually just wrote something about this, lies that we tell ourselves. So a personal story. So I enjoy crafting and decorating. And I used to every month decorate my mantle in my living room. And for a couple of months, I kept telling myself, I don't have time to do this. I'll do it next month. I was lying to myself. So one day I was actually caring for my nephews and my kids. So I had 5 kids here, and I decorated the mantle. And I was like, holy shit, I've been lying to myself this whole time. If I can decorate my mantle while watching and keeping 5 children alive, I can do this every month. And I'm just making the choice not to do it. But yeah, we lie to ourselves every single day about so much stuff.
Yeah, very, very true. Very true. So, listeners, jot that note down, because stop lying to yourself. Do you believe it's important for people to create some sort of strategy for their personal life and their business?
Oh, absolutely. I think, I'm a planner, I'm an organizer. So for me, everything has a plan or a strategy. Even my day-to-day stuff, cleaning my house, or doing laundry, or making dinner, or making plans for that. The more things that I can systematize or organize, the less stress that I feel personally, and then as well as in my business. And so I don't think that people understand the importance of systems or processes in their business or even personal life. So when you actually finally feel the deliciousness of having organization or a system or process, it's like, holy shit, why haven't I been doing this whole time? Like, let me do that with my laundry or my cleaning schedule. So yeah, that's my first thing coming in. Do you have a system? Do you have a process? Do you have process documents? So that's the first thing that I do when I'm coming in to a business, is asking them what type of documentation they have for their business, to see how we can streamline things for them.
Yeah, and that's a huge gold nugget that you were mentioning with having the systems and processes. When you mentioned, lowering the stress, that's something that I see so often is, people are basically taking a trip across the country without a roadmap when they don't have those systems and processes. Something I see with my business coaching, and I do it from a financial angle, but people not having that business plan or not having a financial plan for their business, and then they expect to get to year 5 or year 10, with a certain mark, certain goal, but then they really don't know how they're going to get there because they don't have that process, and they're basically just shooting from the hip and hoping that they hit something, when in fact they really aren't even shooting in the right direction.
Yes, yes. I mean, so many times I see now as entrepreneurs, I mean, I feel like we're doers. We have an idea or want to accomplish something, so then we just jump right into it, which is great. I mean, I definitely believe that being passionate about something and jumping into it is a good thing, and that's how you should start doing it. But over time, shit can fall apart pretty quickly. So until you systematize that, or even have it written down in paper, or, have set goals or strategies in place, you cannot, you'll plateau until you actually have those things.
Sure. Yeah. And your home life in many ways is almost like a business that you must operate it, with some structure. And so, you're mentioning, doing the laundry or even, the family budget, write the thing on a whiteboard. Yes, you can change it, but have it written down because it makes it real and you see it and you stick to it, and it makes it to where you're not thinking about it all the time because you have put it out there and you've made it, in black and white, and it becomes much more tangible when you do those things.
I feel like it allows there to be some structure, especially having small children, knowing that we do this on these days, and this is what is expected of them. Because that's life. You'll always have expectations from somewhere, and, goals and things that you want to try to accomplish. So it's nice. It feels nice to just say, okay, this is what I'm going to do today. Cool. I got it.
Yeah, and when you have those plans written down, I just mentioning the whiteboard. That's one of the things that I will educate parents on, especially when they have young children, is setting those things. In this particular case, the family budget, for example, putting that on the whiteboard and involve your children. If they're in sports, involve them, because the time and the finances are, they have a piece of the pie. They've got skin in the game too. And so, involve them early on and let them understand the value of, this month we had this much to work with. And so you have part of this, we have part of this. That's how it's going to play. But we run out at some point. What do we take away in order to do the things that we want or the things that we need? And it's very important, to involve the entire family in those processes.
That's amazing advice. My 6-year-old, I feel like we've just kind of started getting her. She understands, that things cost money, and everything that we own or do, does cost money. And, we have certain money allocated for certain things, and, it's okay to spend on this, but not on this sometimes. And it's kind of crazy seeing her head like wrap around those things, okay, this food that I'm eating, we go to the grocery store, we have to buy it, or even like living in our home, it costs money. And no, I can't really buy that toy because I'm doing this extra. So
Sure.
No, that is great advice. I think even though she's 6, she gets it. She understands that, we're working to build these things and have these things. And just the other day, she's like, what kind of chores can I do? Because I want to buy this thing. So she understands that she has to, work to earn, certain things. And
Absolutely.
I don't know, as elementary as we have to make it, at least I appreciate her wanting to clean my toilets to make $5.
Yeah, and children get it. We sometimes don't give them credit for really putting 2 and 2 together, but they get the concept of it, and so it's certainly something to involve them in, because they will be a lot more passionate about it when they're having part to do with it, and they know that their parents approve when they've done it. That it's that risk versus reward. You do the thing and then you get the reward for it, and they're going to be happy about having had that part in it.
Absolutely. Growing up, my parents never talked to me about money. We had everything that we wanted or that we needed, and I never really I didn't understand like the concept of, bills or even I think in high school, I took a class that we had to mock live our life, and we had to pay rent and buy groceries and pay utilities and things. And that was like mind blowing to me because I'm like, you have to pay for air conditioning in your house? Like it wasn't something that was ingrained in me growing up. I mean, I had no idea of the bills and things that my parents had to pay. Yeah, I definitely would have appreciated that, I think, more growing up so that I could budget and learn, I think, a little bit quicker when I became an adult.
Yeah. So as far as the entrepreneurs that you've worked with or business owners, since you work with the business strategies, what have you found to be some of the most common reasons that those businesses or the entrepreneurs are either failing or giving up in their business?
Let's see. They're doers. They do, and they just hit the ground and take action. And that's not enough. That's not everything that comes into it. Sure. You can make money. And I think a lot of people think, I'm making money or I have a profit, so things are going well. But, something major can happen. They could lose a key employee or, sure, lose a big account, and they don't have like a fallback plan or a strategy, or even something horrible like the business owner could have to be out of work or want to go on vacation, and not be having a fallback or having a plan or having SOPs like standard
sure,
operating procedure documents. I think that sometimes people feel like, okay, I'm plateaued, I'm making money, this is cool. But they struggle to figure out, okay, well, how do I level up? How do I get to the next step? How do I stop working in my business and start working on it to get to the
right,
next figure?
Right. Yeah, and part of what you were mentioning there, the business succession ideas or the key person ideas, is something that so many business owners aren't thinking about in the beginning. That maybe at year 5 or year 10, they start thinking about it because at that point it's like, okay, well, I've been in business long enough. But what they don't realize is that actually about 40% of businesses are going to liquidate because they've not done that ahead of time. And so, it's a very serious conversation to have, when you're forming your business, and then as soon as possible, getting someone such as yourself to go in and look at the strategies that are going on, and then also to get a business finance person to come in and talk to you about that key man strategy to make sure that your key employees are going to be taken care of. And then if the something happens that you mentioned, then if the unthinkable comes along, then you do have a contingency plan, because if you don't plan, the saying goes, failure to plan is planning to fail. And so that really will be very true, if those unthinkables happen.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
What are some of the roadblocks that you had discovered in building your business that you would encourage people to watch out for?
Well, we talked about, lying to ourselves, not having, not thinking we have enough time, or there's not enough hours
Sure.
in the day to accomplish what I need to. And for me, it was my kids. I had to trust the care of them to someone else for a couple of days a week, because I was trying to do everything myself and lying to myself, and just feeling really overwhelmed. But really, I just had to allocate my time differently and appropriately. And part of that was letting go, allowing someone else to come in my home and watch my kids for a day or a couple days a week. But I think we also, on top of that, we get in our own way. We self-sabotage a lot, a mindset thing. We're afraid of success sometimes. We're afraid of growth. We're afraid to embrace the scary and unknown and get uncomfortable. I feel like most of the roadblocks happen internally.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And it's certainly something that we can avoid when we have the correct mentorship and the correct coaching that's involved. Because so many people think, well, I'm just starting out. I can't afford to have a good business coach, or I can't afford a good business strategist to come in and talk to me. Yeah, that's probably the furthest thing from the truth. Just as, I hear people say, I don't have the money to invest. It's like, well, you don't have the money to invest because you haven't talked to somebody about investing. They're putting the cart before the horse, and they need to kind of reorder those things because that head trash has gotten in their way. They're getting in their own way of saying, I'm not ready for that. But in fact, if you do those sacrificing to bring in that person, you're going to level up so much faster. And then you're going to be able to afford to pay that person even more to help you because you're making even more.
Yes. I mean, it's like, for me, I do have a coach and I do have a mentor. So I was strictly offline until about the first of this year. So I was doing everything on my own. I didn't have a network. I was just, relying on, local traffic and clients. And then I came online and my mind was blown. I had so many more people and resources at my fingertips. And the first thing that I invested in was a course, and then ultimately a coach, because I needed clarity and I needed support. And I knew that I couldn't get where I wanted to be on my own, and I had to pay someone and find a mentor that could help get me there.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to the next question of, what are some of the supporting resources to look for? And, we kind of touched on mentors as being a big one, and coaches. I've also found, SCORE is a good one for people to look for, and Small Business Administration. But what are some of the ones that you recommend out to people when you're working with them and you're strategizing for them?
Well, first of all, I mean, depending on the size of their business, some people just need to let go and hire. Some people just need to allow an online business manager or a product manager or even a VA to come into their business. I use the analogy of your business is your baby, and you are sometimes afraid to let someone hold your baby because you're afraid they're going to drop your baby. But if you find the right person and train them, then your baby is safe in their arms, and it's okay to let go and allow that to happen. So sometimes it just takes, trusting in other people. But I mean, ultimately, knowing where you want to go and having those goals in mind and investing in yourself and your craft is really important. I knew that I needed some content help. I needed to find my voice and figure out how to put that into the world because I was struggling coming from corporate America to me. So I invested in a content coach, which she turned into be my mentor because, I mean, I was along the same path and we connected so incredibly well. So coaching, mentor, and even hiring, letting people in your business.
Yeah, and it's good that you're mentioning that part of it because with so many businesses, and I've been guilty of this from day one of when I started my practice. Is all of my listeners have heard me say probably 100 times now that I'm kind of a controlling person. I don't like taking my hands off the wheel. I like to drive the bus, and it's hard for me to let somebody else come in and do their part. But at the same time, I'm not a jack of all trades, and I shouldn't be. I'm good at an isolated number of things. And so all of those other skills, I should be bringing somebody else in to do those things because it's costing me money if I do it myself. It's costing my customers if I'm doing it myself. And so, things like, say web design or marketing, advertising, all of those other things, I'm not good at those things. So I need to bring somebody else in to take care of it. And, let them do what they're good at. And I stay focused on what I'm good at.
Well, and that's what's nice about being authentic and putting that into the world and attracting the right network or tribe of people that you surround yourself with, because you build the trust with them. And if you need help with someone and you don't know someone that specializes in that particular craft or skill, you can ask for referrals, and they will be trusted, legitimate referrals of people that can help you. So again, that's one of the biggest things that has allowed my business to grow, and even personally to grow, is making sure I'm surrounding myself with the right people, because ultimately they care about me and support me and will, do whatever they can to help me grow.
Sure, sure. And it's also, by having that large network adds so much value to our client relationships, because they will in turn be asking, do you know somebody that does, fill in the blank? And then when you have that extensive network, you're able to give someone who is trustworthy and someone that you will put your reputation on the line to refer, because ultimately that is what you're doing. That is what you're doing,
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
you're putting your name and your brand on the line by referring. So having a good network, is so huge. It's so huge. Now, as far as personal values, how do you incorporate that into your work to give, as it were, a unique flavor to what you do?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, of course, I embrace my authenticity. So that's something that I hold to me. Be you, be yourself, and share that with the world. But also, I mean, I guess really my biggest value, something that I think my kids hear me say it a million times a day, is be kind. Be kind to other humans, no matter if they're like you or if they think like you or, have completely different views than you. We have kindness, and we can love people and be kind to them, and respect them and not judge them. Yeah, no judgment, be kind, love others, no matter what. Those are my big three.
Those are good ones. Is there something that you wish you had done earlier in life that you did not do, that later on you're kind of looking back and saying, I kind of wish I'd have done that?
Yeah. So I was a stay-at-home mom for 4 years before I started my business. And I wish I would have started sooner. I wish I would have kicked myself and pushed myself to actually realize that this is what my passion is, and this is what I wanted to do and how I wanted to help people. So I feel like I wasted a little bit of time doing that. However, I did grow a lot as a person in those, few years, which I think ultimately helped me kind of hit the ground running and be a little bit more successful than just like starting off. Yeah, really, that's the only thing so far. I mean, my business is only about 1.5 years old, so I'm sure there's some other regrettable things that may happen in the future. I am a big failure happens, and it's okay, and it makes us bigger, stronger, and better humans, and we grow from it. So I know that that's going to happen, and I'm okay with it, because ultimately it'll propel me into forward progress.
Yeah, and I like that you're mentioning, failure happens. Charge in, embrace it, embrace the failure, because we grow from failure. We don't grow from success. And so, charge in and let those failures happen and learn from them. That's the important part. Learn from the failures. But then also, if you have mentors that have failed before, learn from theirs too, because the best kind of learning experience is somebody else's failure. It doesn't hurt so bad. So, a little 2 cents there.
I love it. No, I definitely agree. And another thing, I was just talking about this the other day, is accepting accountability for your failures or for your, you're falling short of things. That's one thing I feel like a lot of people miss. If you don't accept accountability and, apologize and move on, then, I mean, you're not going to get anywhere. I mean, it's just going to, tarnish your skill set or even your reputation. So accountability is a huge value that I hold, and that I hold the people that I work with too.
Yeah, and it's really giving yourself a disservice, because you're offending yourself by not accepting and admitting, that stumble that you had. It's doing yourself a disservice by not owning it, because then you have to repeat that mistake later. And it's like they say, something happens first, shame on you. Happens twice, shame on me. It's the same thing in having those failures. Is if you do the same thing twice, that's not a good thing. It doesn't show good on you. Learn from it, be accountable for it, and accept it, admit it, and move on.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were starting up your business, what were some of the hurdles that you faced personally that you had to overcome in starting that? Being a young mother with young children, I'm sure there were some hurdles there. Tell me about those.
Yes. Well, I actually, I had my first client before I started my business. Kind of happened a little backwards. I was getting massage, and I realized that the masseuse was a singlepreneur, a solopreneur. He didn't have any help, and he could have been growing and better than he was. And so I literally had like a sales conversation with him at the end of my appointment before I even started my business. And then we scheduled a meeting for the next week, and I became, officially a business. But ultimately, the biggest struggle or hurdles were for me in regards to my time management. I was used to giving all of my time and energy to my kids and my home and my husband, and being able to find that work balance, work-life balance was a struggle, and still continues to be a struggle. Just because, 4 years is a long time to, be a full-time mom, full-time housewife. And now my business has grown faster than I ever imagined. I expected it to grow once my kids were both in school, and over a period of like 3 years, and it happened in like 6 months. So it was like, oh, wow, what do I do now? I didn't plan for this. But it's still a struggle every day. I no longer feel guilty about the time that I am working. It was a lot of self-work that I had to do to get to the place that I am, but it's still a struggle.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the self-work part, because even for those that are not, they're not working parents, there still is that self-work that comes in, and obviously the guilt that they're not committing to other things. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because that, again, it's more authenticity, more transparency, and those are some huge nuggets. When you kind of came upon how to work that out, was that something that was an obvious answer, or are you just kind of learning as you go and stumbling on the answers?
Well, so my coach said, look, let's talk about the different things that you can do to give yourself some more time so that you can work on your business instead of in it all the time. Right. And I didn't want to admit that I needed to allow someone else to watch my kids. And so it was a tough conversation that she led me down the path. She didn't tell me, she led me there, so that it was almost a self-realization thing. But we talked about how it could start off slow. So I hired a nanny, and I stayed at home while the nanny was here with my kids for the first couple of weeks, so that I could feel comfortable. Prior to the nanny, no one has ever watched my children other than my mother and my in-laws. So grandparents were the only ones that I allowed my kids to be alone with. So it was a really big, it was a random nanny service. And I mean, I did some interviews, but by a couple months in, I was allowing her to take the kids to the park, and I would go to the coffee shop, and it was a little bit of a transition. But I had to have someone help coach me down that path because of how reluctant I was to allow that to happen.
Sure. Yeah, and I would think that's a hard conversation to have with yourself, to go through that. I've not been blessed with children yet, so my day will come. I'll be the freaky dad that's like, cleaning his firearms when the boys come over to date the girls, that kind of thing.
I even have, so we have a little camera in our living room, so that so my son is a little crazy. He broke 3 of our TVs in 6 months, so I cannot trust him to be alone. He's 2. So I was even so crazy as to like watch the nanny on the camera. The first couple days that she was here, literally I was like in the next room. I could hear them, but I'm like, okay, like. So then I started like on like the following week, I would hide my phone from myself so that I could just let go a little bit and stop being so weird, stalking her. But yeah, it was a little rough for me.
Yeah, growing pains is such a wonderful thing. So what are your greatest character strengths, would you say?
Oh. That's a great question. I believe that I'm a problem solver, and I am pretty blunt and open when it comes to communication. What else? Of course, like organization and planning are huge like strengths for me. Communication, I believe, is a big one, of course, that allows everything to happen. And confidence. I'm a very confident person, and I think that has propelled me to grow faster than I expected.
And, obviously the flip side question is, what would you say your greatest weakness is?
Ooh, I think stepping outside myself sometimes, not looking at situations through my eyes. I think that's a big struggle. I also, trust is a big thing for me, like, especially like, with my kids. But I lack some, and I think I was tainted a little bit in corporate America, like trusting. I, like you, like to drive the bus. I don't like anybody else to drive the bus. I feel like I can accomplish things better or faster than other people. But I mean, now embracing team members and VAs and project managers, I'm starting to, I think, shake that weakness, but it definitely has been a weakness for me.
So where do you get your best ideas? Some people, they take walks, or, there's a special spot in the house that they do their brainstorming. What was that for you?
Ooh. So we have a lake place that we go to. We actually we have to buy a new camper because we had water in, whatever. But we spend a lot of time there. Usually we would stay the week there and come home on the weekend, so it's less busy. But I think nature, just spending time in the quiet, hearing nature, not, busyness of the world, that I think inspires me.
Good. I can relate to that one. Get out to the quiet and away from the concrete jungle, as it were.
Yes.
So kind of as our winding up question, and this is one that some of my guests actually have dreaded. No, it's one of my favorites, though. And it's I'll let you get a sip of coffee there while I'm asking it. So it's sort of the trivia question of, tell us something about you that most people don't know.
Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see. That's kind of hard because I'm a very open and transparent person. So there's a lot. Let's see. I love to dance. And I actually used to dance. I danced for 12 years. I did tap, jazz, ballet, and point. And I wanted to be a professional dancer, amongst other things. But I'm very short. I'm 5'2.5". So I'm not tall enough to, rock it as a ballerina, unfortunately. That was really, really hard thing for me to realize when I was growing up.
Well, it shouldn't be something to keep you from doing dance. I guess, if you decide to do another career at some point in your life, then maybe we'll see you in the see you in the lights, see your name in lights, as it were.
Right? I'm happy just dancing in my car and embarrassing. I can't wait for my kids to get older. And so then they'll be embarrassed with my rocking out and jamming in the car.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and doing it in the grocery store too. You have to be sure to do that in the produce aisle. That way all the kids blush. And
right.
Well, it's been great, having you on the program. And before we go, I would like for you to just go ahead and let the listeners know, how can they get a hold of you? Because what you offer is very valuable, and so they need to be able to reach out and have some contact methods for you. So how would they do that?
I am on Facebook, of course. My personal profile, Jessica J. Olbin. My business name is Flourish, Flourish, with a LLC. But that's all on my personal Facebook profile. So find me on Facebook.
Okay, perfect. And Jessica, like I say to each of the guests, it's been a great pleasure and honor to have you on the program, and we'll see you around the bend.
Thank you so much.